Tonight with breaking news, we go live to Houston, Texas. Police are desperately searching for a 12-year-old little boy last seen on Christmas Eve. Police say 12-year-old Jonathan Foster was at his babysitter's house when he left to go get video games from his home. It was just a few doors down, but then he vanished. He vanished into thin air. He's gone. He was gone on Christmas Eve. Major developments tonight. At this hour, investigators and search teams are scouring the immediate area, concentrating their search in nearby woods for any signs of the missing boy. As concerns continue to grow desperate each hour that passes, tonight, where is 12-year-old Jonathan Foster?
And Jonathan, baby, if you can hear Granny.
Along the train tracks.
I'm asking for y'all's help.
Through the thick brush near Garden Oaks.
Granny loves you, little fella. Hang in there.
A search for a missing boy.
We need to find this little boy, please.
Grows more desperate by the hour.
We're looking. We're trying our best, baby.
12-year-old Jonathan Foster.
My daughter was at work, and he called at her job. He said it was an emergency.
Who vanished from his northwest Houston neighborhood on Christmas Eve.
And then when she got to the phone, no one was there.
The mysterious call came in just before 2 in the afternoon, a few minutes after the boy's stepdad reportedly saw Foster at his home.
We all want him home, safe.
Good evening. I'm Jean Casares of In Session on the True TV network in for Nancy Grace. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are live with breaking news this evening. A 12-year-old little boy just vanishes into thin air on Christmas Eve. At this hour, investigators are searching the immediate area and the woods for any signs at all of this little boy. Let us go straight out to Joe Gomez, reporter, KTRH News Radio. Joe, what is the latest tonight?
Well, Gene, right now, police say little Jonathan Foster was potentially kidnapped from his quiet neighborhood on Christmas Eve. Right now, his disappearance, details around his disappearance are very mysterious, but we have reports that perhaps he was with his babysitter last seen by his stepfather. What we do know was that minutes after he disappeared, his mother received a desperate phone call at work from somebody, but when she answered the phone, the person on the other line hung up. It's very bizarre, the situation surrounding his disappearance. Why would a little boy run away from home on the day before Christmas? Or even more, why would somebody take a little boy on the day before Christmas, Gene?
Joe, we are getting information right now coming in. They have just issued an Amber Alert in this case of a little boy gone on Christmas Eve. An Amber Alert has just been issued. Joe Gomez, reporter, KTRH News Radio. Start from the beginning, all right? Because on Christmas Eve, about what time in the afternoon was he at the babysitter's? And take us from there.
Reportedly, he was at the babysitter sometime around 1:45 in the afternoon. Said he was going to go to his apartment to go get video games. They all lived in the same neighborhood. It was at that point that he vanished. Nobody knows where he took off to. I have to tell you, the weather, it's been very cold out here. If this little boy was on his own, all he was wearing was a T-shirt, jeans, and candy-striped shoes. If he's been on his own, the weather's been dropping down to the 30s. We've had tumultuous storms out in the Houston area. Right now, police have been canvassing the entire wooded area near the neighborhood on horseback, trying to find any sign of little Jonathan Foster. But, Gene, they found absolutely nothing.
All right, I want to ask you, Joe Gomez, do we know how far he walked from the babysitter's house to his own home? Do we know how far of a walk that would be?
Well, presumably it wouldn't have been that far. I mean, they both live in the same neighborhood. He's done this before. He grew up in this part of town. So he's 12 years old. He knows, he knows more or less, what he's doing. It would be very odd, though the child does suffer from ADD, so he can get easily confused, but still, at the age of 12 on Christmas Eve to just vanish on his own accord, it doesn't make any sense. He was looking forward to receiving Christmas gifts and being with his family. But now all that is gone. He's missing. We don't know where he is, but police say he's been potentially kidnapped.
And everybody, we are taking your calls live tonight. We need to find this little 12-year-old Jonathan Foster, who does suffer from attention deficit disorder. To Ruben McElnamy, producer for Nancy Grace, what more can you tell us tonight?
Right, Jean. We do know that police are desperately searching this evening for this 12-year-old child that went missing on Christmas Eve in the afternoon. What we also know is they have said that both parents, his mother and his stepfather, whom he lived with, are being very cooperative and helping. So they have said this. We've also asked police if there have been any reports, and of course when a child goes missing, one always looks at the family, friends. This is a very typical method that the police use. So they have indicated there has been no reports of domestic violence in the home, nor has child protective services been at the home due to complaints of abuse of this child.
So, Rupert, let me ask you, how many sexual offenders are in the Houston area, which is where this little boy lives?
Jean, many. And so, of course, this is always a concern in this area. This is inner city Houston, 43rd Street. This is a city environment. It's not a suburban environment. And this is near train tracks. As you may have heard earlier today, they were looking at a train track area, which is just a very short area away from where the home is, where he was walking, supposedly. Also, there's conflicting reports as to exactly where he was, in fact, last seen, Jean. We've heard one story where he was at the babysitter's, and then he vanished from the babysitter's house. But then we've heard another story where he actually returned and was spotted in the home of his parents. And then that his stepfather may have, in fact, been the last person that saw him. And there's also a neighbor that places that child at that apartment complex at his home at that time, 1:45 p.m., according to police.
And this case is breaking right now. Houston police have told Nancy Grace producers that they are very confused, that they are actually getting conflicting stories from various family members and those that saw that little boy last. Let's go to the callers. Marilyn in Florida. Hi, Marilyn.
Hi, Jean. How are you?
I'm
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Thank you so much for calling tonight.
I guess I was listening and I got some answers for some of my questions. This little boy needed a babysitter. He suffers with ADT. I mean, a babysitter is someone to take care of someone. And if he left the home alone, he should not have. He should have been watched because he's easily confused, easily, go with someone else, So he should not have been left to go somewhere, even if it's next door.
Let's go to the lawyers with that question. Excellent question, Marilyn. John Burris, defense lawyer out of New York. John Manuelian, defense attorney out of Los Angeles. John Burris, let's first just talk about a duty. A babysitter has a duty because she's watching a child. And if a child has attention deficit disorder, that is an increased duty on this babysitter.
Well, I would agree with that there is an increased duty, on a babysitter of this kind. But, I don't know that you could say and put all this blame on a babysitter at this stage of the proceedings, because there's conflicting stories out here about who actually saw this child last. And more importantly, this child apparently has gone from place to place in that particular apartment complex in the past. It may not have been that unreasonable for the babysitter to allow the kid to do that particular thing. We don't know how bad a condition that he ultimately was in. So I don't think I'd be too quick to rush to judgment on the babysitter per se.
John Manuelian, defense attorney out of Los Angeles. Even if the little boy had done it before, does that negate a duty of the babysitter in December weather that's in the 30s in Houston to have him go out without a jacket? We don't even know how far it was at this point. He could have been walking on the city streets to get from one door to the next. We know it was close, but we don't know how close.
Jean, Jonathan Foster was 12 years old. There's always a duty to protect minors. And in this case, what I want to know is who the babysitter is. How old is that babysitter? How many times has that babysitter watched Jonathan? How long did that babysitter wait before the babysitter notified the authorities or the parents that Jonathan was missing? These are all relevant questions, and the key to the prosecution in this case, or at least the investigation in this case, is to start with the babysitter and work backwards.
That is right. And in the meantime, we've got to find Jonathan Foster. He's just 12 years old. Let's show everybody. He's white male, fair complexion, 4'7" tall, 85 pounds. He also has a visible overbite. That is one of his characteristics. He was wearing a tan shirt with a guitar on it. He had his jeans on. He had black and white tennis shoes with red stripes, but no coat. He didn't have a coat on and he hasn't been seen since Christmas Eve. To Cheryl McCollum joining us tonight. She is a crime scene investigator, Pine Lake PD. The fact that it was the holidays, the fact that everyone has been involved with the extreme weather, and thoughts were taken away from maybe this little boy. Have we lost 3 days here now?
We've lost an incredible amount of time. The fact that it's Christmas Eve makes it sound intrafamiliar. They're going to look at the person that last saw him. They claim the family's cooperative, Gene, but we still don't have a timeline. Why, after 72 hours, are there conflicting reports from family? That makes no sense to me. So the stepfather, they're going to look at custody issues. They're going to look at who last saw him. They're going to look at whatever problems might have been going on in that home that hadn't been reported to police. Come on, Gene, we know that happens. Children are abused all the time, and the police don't know it till sometimes it's too late.
It's very confusing that police are so confused at this point. Houston Police Department, Joe Gomez, reporter from KTRH News Radio. So his mother is at work on Christmas Eve about 1:45. She gets a phone call, Joe Gomez?
That's right, from a mysterious person who called her at work. She got the message. She goes to pick up the phone, but then when she picks up the phone, the person on the other end clicks off, hangs up the receiver. Who was it? The person on the other line said they had an emergency to tell her. Well, this was moments after little Jonathan Foster disappeared. Now, this adds more fuel to the theory. Did he really run away, or was he taken, Gene?
This little boy, please.
12-year-old Jonathan Foster vanished from his northwest Houston neighborhood on Christmas Eve.
Granny loves you, little fella. Hang in there.
A search for a missing boy grows more desperate by the hour.